Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 923. Start off with c4, playing the English opening, and he chose the move a6, which it's a bit surprising it's in the opening book at all, but it actually is here. A6, not to be recommended. Let's see, I went knight c3, so we're still in the book at this point. d4 has been played before, apparently. And then black went e5, and I went g3, and we're just out of the book. Although knight f3 is a good move here, so that's a respectable way to play. It's putting pressure on this pawn, taking advantage of the fact that it can't move forward. But anyway, I was just going with my English setup with g3, and this, g3, and this keeps the normal opening advantage plus a move, because he basically gave me a free move there. Let's see, he continued with c6, so he's blunting my bishop. Bishop g2, he went queen f6. So I commented on this during the game. He's made 3 pawn moves and 1 queen move, so you can't really recommend this. Once again, knight f3 is recommended by the chess engine, and already, well, even with the move I played, it's starting to give white a +1 advantage. So not quite winning, but nearly so. It's almost like black has sacrificed a pawn for no compensation or something like that. But I figured, well, his queen is pointing here, so he's probably going to play bishop to here and go for the quick attack. So I played e3, which is part of this scheme anyway. One of the ways to play the English, put the knight here or here and then push on with d4. And I mean, it's the other way. The other way I play it is with the Botvinnik setup, where I play the pawn to e4 and the other pawn to d3, but if he has a bishop here, it's a little bit annoying to play that. The knight is a little bit loosely defended on the f3 square, and well, normally it goes to e2 in that setup, but then he has a clear line looking towards the f2 pawn, so maybe he gets a little something that way, and I just didn't see any reason to allow him that kind of counterplay, so I just played e3. And he did go bishop c5, somewhat surprisingly. Sometimes when your opponent plays moves like this, you know, you should take a clue and look for a better move elsewhere, rather than continuing with your plan, which has already been thwarted. Anyway, he went, let's see, I went knight e2. He goes knight h6. I castled. He goes knight f5. And I went knight to e4. Forking the queen and the bishop. So I thought that was good. Just get rid of this bishop, which is actually still a good piece, and it'll make it easier for me to push forward in the center. But well, the chess engine, here's an interesting line that the chess engine came up with, taking advantage of black's slow development. I mean, in addition to making all those pawn moves, bringing the queen out early, he also took 2 moves to get this knight developed. And he hasn't touched the queen side. So the chess engine would play like this, d4, and after an exchange, if he takes the pawn, which is not recommended, the chess engine would just drop back. It's just showing how this kind of thing can be punished. It looks like black has just gotten away with winning a pawn, but then you play rook e1 check, and this is a bit awkward. If he blocks with the bishop, then you've got this pin on the bishop, and you can exploit it with f4. So moving the king, however, creates its own problems. So bishop f4, and then say d5. The chess engine is offering up just a whole bunch of crazy moves for black at this point. All of them obviously losing, giving up material, but I said, well, what's wrong if he just plays d5? And the answer is, you can take here. And why is that good? You might want to pause the video here if you don't see why that's possible. It's kind of a cute trick. Okay, I'm going to give the answer away now. If he takes the queen, and you have this check, and the queen's not here to guard the d6 square, and it's not around to block, so the king moves, and then the rook comes in and mates. So that's game over. Anyway, it just shows what happens when you neglect your basic principles there, and go off inventing on your own. Knight e4, let's see. Yeah, knight e4 is still a good move, keeping a winning edge at this point. The evaluation is risen towards +2 or +3. I'll show you the point where it's at the peak. Let's see. He went queen e7, and I just got rid of the bishop. Let's see. And now he's got some pressure on the c-pawn, so I just defend it and open up a line for my bishop. Maybe the bishop will go to b2, or maybe to a3 in some cases. Let's see. He ignores all that and plays h5, so obviously he's just all about the attack here. So I went d4, or maybe he was playing on tilt. You know, I looked up his rating afterwards, and this was near his peak rating. He'd played over 1,000 rapid games, and his rating currently is 1675. So he was slightly above his average rating here at 1710, but he still does pretty well considering how he was playing in this game. So yeah, maybe he's just having a a funny moment here. Anyway, I played d4. He dropped his queen back to e7. I take. He takes. And I get my rook to b1. So I'm just deciding to put my bishop here. Also, the queen was threatening to take my rook, so didn't want to allow that. I mean, the only way you can lose a game like this is to commit a horrible blunder like leaving your rook hanging, which can happen, of course. It's happened to me. Let's see. Rook b1, he goes d6. So he's finally starting to open up a few lines here. Maybe hope to get some pieces out. I go bishop b2, so he has to move his queen again. And then I push on with e4, so he has to move the knight again. This knight was actually on a pretty good square too, so let's kick it back. He drops back to h6. And then I went ahead and took on g7. That's okay. Let's see, he played rook h7. And then I played bishop takes. Yeah, the chess engine says I should just drop the bishop back to c3 and not... after rook h7, just drop the bishop back to c3 or even b2 and not bother taking his knight. I guess the knight is not doing a whole lot there, so I don't need to get rid of it. But I was just trying to simplify things. And it was one of his few developed pieces. So I took it. And let's see, he took. And then I played knight to d4. So this is the point where I looked at the engine evaluation again. It's like plus 3.9 for white. I was thinking the material was still even here, but actually I'm up a pawn. He's only got, he's got only 6 pawns and I have 7. So it's not fair. I was trying to see how big an evaluation I could get without winning any material. And then this is the point at which he lets me win the exchange. So I'm definitely up material, but I'm already up a pawn here. So anyway, it was plus 2 or plus 3 in some earlier positions where the material was even, and here it's almost plus 4, and I'm just up 1 pawn. So, so it's pretty clear that your activity of your pieces counts for a lot. Let's see, and here he made a blunder with knight to d7. I can't really call the other moves blunders, except I mean it's just his whole style of playing is incorrect, it seems to me, in this game. But knight d7 is a blunder because it. This square was previously covered by his bishop. Now he's blocked the bishop, so it's no longer covering that square. And so the knight hops into f5 with a fork. And actually noticed this tactic, so I played it. And so he defended here, and so he's just down the exchange. And now, yeah, the only way you can lose this game, as I said before, is to blunder horribly. But it can still happen. But it's not that interesting here until we get to the point where there's a bunch of checkmates. So some neat checkmating patterns to learn towards the end of the game. So let's just go forward to that. This is how the game went. I didn't really make any big blunders after this. Oh, and this was a nice move, actually. Rook takes e6. I mean, every move wins, so it's hard to say this move is better than the other, but this move wins quickest. And yeah, it's just a good idea to break through the center and take advantage of that pin there. And so now there's various forced mates. Is this where the mates start to happen? Yeah, I think it's a forced mate from here. So the first few moves keep me in line for that forced mate. Queen b6 was good. I played rook c7, and I played rook e8 check. Oh, so right here there's a faster mate than what I played. So if you want to find the fastest mate at this point, you can pause the video and look at it. Okay, here let's step forward. the fastest mate here is rook d6 check. And he goes king c8. It's the only move because his rook is pinned, and then the other rook comes down and mates. So there is the mate in 2. So after rook takes e6, I think it was a mate in 4. So it's pretty much all over there. And it's actually a forced mate all the way through. Even though I don't play the fastest mate, there was never a moment where I gave up the forced mate. So there was always a forced mate there. Anyway, I went rook e8 check. He went king up. And now, there's another forced mate here, which is slightly faster than the move I played by 1 move. If you want to look for it, you can. I'm going to give the answer away now. This is a very interesting one because the first move in this sequence is not a check. It's queen c5. But it's just covering these squares and preparing to bring the other rook in to mate. And there's actually nothing he can do. His king has no moves. The rook, it doesn't really matter if the rook moves or not, or if the queen moves. There's nothing they can do to stop the rook from coming in here. So if he plays f5, which momentarily protects this area, then queen takes f5 check, king d6, and c5 mate. That's a pretty mate. Mating with the pawn while the rooks protect each other and cover all these squares, and the queen is covering these squares. So nice. Let's see. I played rook e7 check, which leads to a mate which is 1 step slower. Let's see. He went king d6. Okay, so now can you find the mate in about 2 or 3 here? Okay, I'm going to give the answer away again. It is queen b4 check. Once again, taking advantage of the fact that the king has no squares, so this is completely forced. He's got to play the pawn up, and the queen comes back to give a check. The king still has no moves, so he's got to block with the rook, and then the queen comes in here. So that's nice. There's 2 blocks, 2 checks followed by blocks, and then the last one opens up a check that can't be blocked, and he's mated there. Anyway, here I played queen takes c7, and the king ran out to c5. Played rook 7 to e5. He went king b4, and now there's a mate in 1 here. You should all be able to spot this one. Queen here. And then let's see. I went queen d6 check. He went king c3. I went rook 5 to e3 check. He went king b2. And now the fastest mate here is slightly different than what I played, but I was still a mate in 4, mate in 5 on every move here. So if you want to see the fastest mate at this point, you can think about it. Okay, giving the answer away now. You check with this rook at a moment when my queen is still guarding the escape square. Oh, no, it's the other rook. Sorry. Got that one wrong. You check with this rook. So the king is forced back while my queen is guarding this square. And so the king goes to c3, and then it's another check from behind. So this is nice. The queen is guarding the escapes along these files, and the rook is guarding the escape here, and then this one delivers the check. A lot of nice patterns in this game. Let's see. So I came in with the queen. I was thinking, well, surely with these 3 in a battery here, there's a mate. And there is, of course. It's just not the fastest one. And then here, well, yeah, once again, you can look for it, see if you can find the fastest mate from here. Okay, the fastest mate from here is queen a5 check, driving the king back. Often a common theme is in these mating puzzles that you drive the king somewhere and you drive him back, but your pieces have gotten into a slightly better configuration. Anyway, now when you drop the rook down, rook 3 to e2, there's no escape because the queen is guarding those escape squares. So that's a mate. Anyway, this is also leading to a mate after b4 check. It goes king a4. And there is a mate in 1 here once again. Can you spot it? Okay, the answer is bishop d1 check. That's also a mate because he has nowhere to run to. I had spotted he had nowhere to run to, but I was trying to figure out how to protect this pawn, but I just leave the queen there and check with the bishop. I had forgotten about the bishop. So rook b1, I brought that over to defend this pawn. And what did he do? He played h takes g3. And finally, I put him out of his misery with queen to c2. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this little mating extravaganza, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.